How would it feel to have a thriving fitness business and have the freedom to enjoy life at the fullest? Well, that is exactly what the Trainer Revenue Multiplier Show is going to give you. My name is Mathew Park. This is Jaime Filer.
Hey, guys.
And we are here to serve.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Trainer Revenue Multiplier podcast. I am joined today by the Diet Doc. If you don't know him, I need you to just pause and Google Dr. Joe Klemczewski because he's got one of the most impressive resumes ever in the bodybuilding world, and it is such a pleasure and an honor to have him on the TRM podcast. Dr. Joe, how are you?
I am great. How have you been?
I've been well.
Good.
No complaints. Now, again, anyone who is unfamiliar with you, I'm going to call them out. They are clearly not a student of the game. They haven't done their research. You've been around as long as macros have been around. I remember you from when the WMBF used to have a magazine and you would pull ads from that. And it gave me, I was like, man, when I can afford it, I want to hire this guy.
Well, you are too kind. I thought you were going to say I've been along since Moses, but
yeah.
It's funny you say that because there is an entire generation, obviously, maybe two, who have come up beyond my days writing for all the fitness magazines. But yeah, a lot of those people who are now entrenched in social media, and most of my contributions came just prior to that. I'm a little bit tangential, so you don't have to know who I am. That's perfectly fine.
Well, for those who don't, and again, you guys will be penalized off air. Can you start by just giving us a brief overview of your impressive journey in the health and fitness industry?
Well, it started out very personally, like a lot of people. As an 11, 12-year-old boy, I just got very interested in lifting weights for sport. So I was a pretty good baseball player and all-around athlete at that time, or at least I was trying to be. And when you started lifting weights back then, again, without the internet or social media, you just kind of relied on magazines. And so everybody was reading Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness. If you were interested in training, even exercise science as an industry had just not really proliferated. So I was reading all those magazines and following all those protocols and Mr. Olympia this, blah, blah, blah. And so I turned my college major around a little bit. I was a senior majoring in marketing and business management and decided, man, this just sounds awful. I want to do something in physical science, something like that. So the only thing really available at the time, this was the late 80s, was physical therapy. So I went to the IU med school, did a pre-med allied health degree, graduated as an orthopedic physical therapist, and I loved it. Like that was what I planned to do for the rest of my life.
Sure.
But I had, at that point, a little bit later than that, I won my pro card, and I had done a doctorate in nutrition just because I was so eaten up by being a great bodybuilder. And I thought, man,
intended. I had
it was, again, the internet didn't exist. Like you couldn't just go online and Google how to do this, how to do that. And so I took the academic route. And when I started competing as a WNBF pro, and I met Steve Downs, who was the editor-in-chief of the Chalo Publishing Natural Bodybuilding and Fitness Empire. They had 5, 6, 7 magazines at the time. He said, wait a second, you're a pro in my organization and you have a doctorate in nutrition, and I have 6 or 7 magazines I need to fill up with content every month. So he said, let's talk.
Sure. Yeah.
So pretty soon, that's what they know. That's how people became, fans of mine early on. And I was invited to speak at different fitness camps and eventually science conferences and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And now here you are. So what would you say is one of or a couple of the key milestones that were really pivotal for you in terms of changing the course you thought you were going to take, right? Like, I'm sure that when you became a pro, you're like, I'm going to get all the endorsements and this is how I'm going to pay my way through life. And you're like, wait, just kidding. I'm going to be a trainer, a coach. But then you started coaching coaches too. So I'm curious how and when those pivots happened.
Well, you're right. When I was maybe 15 years old, I just knew I was going to be Mr. Olympia, and like, that would be my life.
Yeah.
I did, I did hit a couple milestones, which was I wanted to compete by age 21, wanted to turn pro by 30. It just happened in a way I didn't even know existed, which is I became a drug-free pro. And one of those big pivots was when I decided to leave physical therapy and start my own gym, which I could use as kind of a health facility. We still did physical therapy, some other types of physical health modalities. And that's when I started doing nutrition consulting. And at that time, Jamie, it was highly illegal. What was, then the American Dietetics Association had completely legislatively blocked anybody from doing anything.
Yep.
And so I very carefully met with an intellectual property attorney, and we talked about the different things you could do and not do with just, even linguistically, how you describe yourself. And then at some point when I was speaking at different conferences, and a lot of bodybuilders and gym owners and trainers would come up to me and say, man, you're doing all this nutrition coaching. I had started the entire business model through natural bodybuilding and fitness advertisements of being a coach, a contest prep coach.
Right.
And so everybody wanted to do that. And so I came back home after one trip in particular, and I told one of my top staff members, like, we've got to create a licensing program. We've got a franchise.
Yeah.
And so 23 years ago, we started the Diet Doc licensing program to legally give nutrition coaches a pathway to coach clients.
Amazing. I love that. And again, teaching people your methodology, because you can teach business and you can teach marketing, but there aren't enough people teaching good coaching protocols. Which is a perfect segue into my next question. Over the last 20 years, and I'm so glad that that's approximately how long your career spans, what significant trends have you observed in the fitness industry that have shaped where we are now?
That is a phenomenal question. And I love talking to this or to coaches about this, because it changes so often now. Business cycles that you could rely on for 5 or 10 year swings back then are now 6 and 12 months because of technology, social media, and so forth. Yeah. So here's one thing that really became a strong impetus for me. And this is one arc of culture that just hasn't changed. This goes back to 1997, 1998. I was reading an article in Club Industry, which was a journal for personal trainers and gym owners. And they said the future of fitness is going to be boutique facilities. This was at a time when there was kind of a race to have 100,000 square foot facilities.
Like Bally Total Fitness back
Bally's, Lifetime, all these things. And they said that's not where the future is. It's in boutique fitness. And so very shortly after that, all of these little personal training studios popped up. Those became boot camp facilities. Those became Orange Theories and boxing themed gyms. And now 25, almost 30 years later, it's still centered on exactly what they predicted. But those themes have changed. Right. And 10 or 15 years ago, when I was training nutrition coaches to be nutrition coaches, they just thought the end all be all was to sit on your couch with a laptop and that's how you become a coach. And for the last 5 years, Jamie, I have been screaming, that is not going to work. Yep. You have to be face to face with people. That can be part of your income and that can be part of your reach. But if you're not in your community, becoming the expert in your community, going all the way back to that 1997 article, you're just not going to make it.
Yeah. That's amazing. And it's amazing that you knew that back then. So I guess my question is, how do you feel about the state of the industry now, where the truth is the majority of people, if we're being honest, don't have that personal touch or connection because they're doing it from behind their computer?
Mm-hmm. Well, you still can. So I shouldn't say that's not the future. It's not the future for most of us.
Okay.
And one of the biggest trends that really etches that in stone is social media and this singularity of information we have, specifically now with AI. You cannot sell information any longer. People want experience. They don't feel the need for knowledge. They want knowledge curated to their exact need and experience.
Yeah, I love that. So it's almost like we've kind of figured out that middle ground where we use social media and our computers to be more personal.
Yeah, I mean, it used to blow people's mind when they would come to a lecture of mine, for example, like, whether it was locally or a science conference somewhere, 100 people would pay a lot of money to come hear somebody speak
Yeah,
and take notes and go away with an action plan and very, very inspired. Now you can get that with, your phone, and it's just free.
right.
You can get 1,000 different opinions and you can compare them all.
Yeah,
People are just not going to pay for information. They want to pay for the information to be applied to them with
right.
just skill.
Yeah, yeah. So looking ahead, if we can, I mean, because seriously, it sounds like whether you've read about it or you're experiencing it, you're always slightly ahead of the curve. You're clearly a very early adopter. You were with macros and flexible dieting back in the day. You were with using your computer and the coaching certification. Where do you see the industry in 10 years from now? What are you reading? What are you experiencing?
It's a little bit tougher for me to predict things now because we're just right on the cusp of what AI is going to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
what one of my coaches in this, for those who aren't really that familiar, that this will blow your minds. One of my clients, I should say, who is the CEO of $1 billion company. He was explaining to me, he has the latest, Chat GPT 4.0, and he was showing me some of the upgrades. He literally walked over to my desk and he took a functional fitness book. He took a picture of it and he said, "Hey, Jeannie, give me a workout plan for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to build this, to do this, to do this." In 10 seconds, that chatbot had read the book and had written him a program.
no. Based
10
on what
seconds
was inside the book.
inside the book after just taking a picture of the cover. That's what AI's future is.
Wow.
Then he said, "Also, Jeannie, give me a diet to lose 10 pounds in a month eating only protein." Instantly, Jeannie came back and said, "We don't advise you to eat only protein, and 10 pounds a week is a little bit fast of a pace. Would you consider eating some carbs and fiber?" It just starts giving this extremely specific, correct advice.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh.
here's where we are, Jamie. This
Yeah.
same guy, this same guy drives 30 minutes to train in my facility. He knows how to get that information for
Uh-huh.
free,
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yep. Yep,
but
yep, yep.
he wants the best of the best.
Yeah.
He could go anywhere. Remember, I mean, he drives a $1 million car to my front door, and he could go anywhere he wants. He comes to me
Yeah.
because I'm his guy, quote unquote.
That personal
So
touch. The personal touch for sure.
that's
Oh,
that's the future of coaching.
I love that. I love that. Now, I mean, again, you've always been on top of industry trends. What do you read? What do you listen to? What do you consume that have significantly influenced your approach to fitness and business? Like obviously we can't replace your experience, but how do we catch up to your education?
I don't want you to catch up, Jamie. Come on.
I know you want
Okay.
us to buy the course. I got it. I got it. Cool, cool, cool.
No. The reason I love this question is because nobody ever asks that, because you're saying, "Hey, I'm willing to do some work. Point me in the right direction."
Yeah.
Um, it's a funny story because, again, pre-social media, pre-internet, when I was 27, 28, 29 years old, I would drag my wife on Friday and Saturday nights to Barnes and Noble, and I would sit on the floor of the business section and just read books. Um, Now, of course, I can just sit behind my laptop and do that, but I love some of the basic NPR type podcasts.
Yeah.
How I Built This with Guy Raz, This American Life. all these invention type things where people are interviewing founders and CEOs, and how did you do this? What did you sacrifice? What was your process? Some of these things are just amazing when you hear these stories. Planet Money, Harvard Business Review. I mean, my reading list and listening list is pretty eclectic, but
Right.
if somebody's having a conversation about business, especially in other industries, like that's what I want to listen to.
I like that. I like that because chances are, it might not apply to fitness, or it may not have been applied to fitness yet, but we can
Exactly.
take it. We can take it.
Exactly.
Oh, great.
100%.
Awesome. So is it possible to get like one book, one podcast, one other resource that you would recommend up and coming coaches pour over? Yeah.
Well, on the business side, I mean, truly, How I Built This is my favorite. Every Spotify list annually, that's my top podcast listen to.
Okay.
One of my favorite authors, I will say, I'm not necessarily sure I have one of his books that is better than another, is Seth Godin.
Yeah, of course.
He's my favorite marketing mind. Scott Galloway is probably a close second. He's not just marketing; he's very cultural. He's a professor of business and marketing at NYU. And what was your other one? Podcast, books, and what else?
Podcast, book, and if there's a periodical that you might advise, or mass reps, Alan Aragon, like any of these things that,
So I don't spend that much time looking at those things in our industry. I try to stay aware
out of it.
But very much like you just described the benefit of being or cross industry. I love Harvard Business Review. I love Scientific American. Scientific American has not only a lot of just biological science, but business type stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I do listen to the smartest people in our industry, people like Eric Helms, people who are literally producing research and analyzing it and have a command of exactly what's going on. So you mentioned mass, that would be a key one for people to get involved in.
Okay. I like that because what I like about those, I mean, don't get me wrong, books are always going to be a classic. Outwitting the Devil, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Like there are some that never go out of style, but mass reps, etc. They keep up to date. Like it's other people doing the research of what's happening now so that you can focus on servicing your clients, nurturing them, etc. Yeah.
And one of the things we do in our Flexible Dieting Institute research review, where about once a month, I do a full hour video presentation on a topic. And then 2 or 3 times a week, we do a research brief called Diet IQ.
Yeah, good.
If you listen to just the people in our industry, they're often kind of trading information. Everybody's talking about this article that just came out or this review that just came out.
Yeah.
I start with a topic. Here's what I want to investigate. Here's what my clients are questioning or need to understand. And you may find interesting arcs of research from the 1950s through today, a meta-analysis just done today. Sure. And when you can look at all of that as an entire topic, it has some real value. So I would say, besides something like mass, go on YouTube to our Flexible Dieting Institute research review. And we have about half behavioral, half nutrition science research reviews.
I love that. And I'm going to have you plug that again at the end of the show, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk also in terms of future. What advice would you give to a 23-year-old trainer who doesn't remember the days of Bally's, definitely doesn't remember club industry, and now only knows influencers and following and TikTok? How do we show them there's a chance, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Joe? How do we say, like, you don't need 10,000 followers and you don't need a YouTube channel?
Yeah, first, you really have to understand the power of specialization. It sounds so counterintuitive to people, because if you're hungry and you're just trying to build a client load, you think, I'll take anybody. But if you specialize in something that's super, super unique to either your skill sets, your education, but also how that connects with a very specific demographic, you're going to win. Like you're going to realize that people want that bullseye. If you needed a surgery, let's say you had an injury and you said, okay, I'm going to go to this orthopedic surgeon. Well, if this orthopedic surgeon, did 2 spinal surgeries last week and a knee replacement and a little, carpal tunnel surgery, and you said, man, I have this torn tendon, I need this reconstruction, you're probably going to want to go to somebody who does just that, who's a recognized expert in that, and that's all he does.
Yeah.
That's what people want from their health and fitness coach. They want somebody who can do exactly what they need.
Yeah.
And that minimum viable audience is way more important than the biggest net you can cast.
Yeah. Which is, again, it speaks to the impact that you're able to have, because chances are it might be an underserved community or a community who maybe doesn't know where to look, but also there's something to be said for the income. A spinal surgeon makes considerably more than a general, a physician or a physician practitioner, right? So there's also that advantage as well. It does come with a caveat. You're going to have to do more research. Spinal surgeons go to school a lot longer than family doctors, right?
Well, here's another thing that is the counterintuitive part. When you make your bullseye that narrow, those people you're serving have friends, they have family members. So I've helped coaches do this so many times where they think they're being constricted if they only market to a certain specific demographic. So let me give you one example. Had a coach of mine who loved kids. It just absolutely wanted to do sport specific training for kids. But he's like, how do you make a living doing that? Right. And I said, I'll show you how. Trust me. So he's going to high schools, meeting with coaches. He starts training a couple kids, their teammates and their parents. All of a sudden his schedule is full.
Right.
Guess what all those kids have? They have moms who are bringing them to training.
There it is.
Guess whose wife is now working with the moms? And then, it goes on and on. Now this guy has his own facility. He started doing this in his home.
Oh my gosh.
And he grew to the point he now hires trainers. He has interns. He has his own facility. He's now a recognized regional coach who goes around teaching other coaches how to do sport specific training.
Yep.
So you narrow your focus like that to be a specialist, and you will find that's how you make it.
Incredible. And again, that specific story speaks to both the income and the impact that you're able to have when you specialize. I think that's the best advice. Amazing.
Absolutely.
What advice? I mean, I don't want to say that you have any regrets, because again, illustrious career, it's got you to where you are now. But if there was something maybe you could peer into the future and do differently and say, what if I had gone in this direction? What would it be?
I'm glad you caveated that with, maybe not you would want to, because I totally missed the ball on social media.
Okay.
But as such an introvert, I don't think I would have hit that pitch if it was set up on a tee in front of me, because it's just not me. So all of that work I did writing articles for magazines and so forth, that was totally right up my alley. When Facebook came along 18, 20 years ago, I thought, oh, that's cool. That's for you to keep in track with your high school buddies and grandma.
Right.
And then people started making money. And then Instagram came along and I said, okay, all the kids are going to Instagram. Kids aren't my demo, so I don't need Instagram. And I let that slide by. Yeah. And I've always had an excuse not to jump in front of people because I don't consider myself extroverted or charismatic. Yeah. So I let other people do that, and they do get more of that slice of the pie. So I tell people all the time, I don't care if you're introverted or not, you've got to have a high utility presence. You got to be giving out great advice, highly usable advice, and you've got to be in front of a video camera for a substantial part of your week.
Brilliant. Which is, again, great advice, not just for your past self, but for future trainers. Dr. Joe, we could riff forever, but unfortunately I have to wrap it up. So please remind people, number one, where they can get in touch with you, but number two, what you offer and how they can be better trainers as a result.
Okay. Well, at Joe Klemczewski is where you can find me on social media. thedietdoc.com is our main website. If you went to YouTube or other podcast platforms, You can look for our Flexible Dieting Institute or Diet Doc information. Actually the YouTube channel, The Diet Doc, is where you'll find all of those playlists with different podcasts and so forth. But again, even that Flexible Dieting Institute research review library, that series has almost 100 full PowerPoint presentation, research reviews you can look at.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and energy, guys. We are at Trainer Revenue Multiplier. I am at Jaime91. Please make sure you, first of all, follow Dr. Joe, hit him up, but also rate, share, subscribe, like this podcast so we can continue to bring you all of these value-packed episodes. And until the next episode is released, have the best rest of your day.